For the reflective writing, this is a short writing. It is approximately 1 to 2 pages, and it is a personal narrative, which means you are allowed to use I, and you write in the first person. It's about your experience in this course. So quite often we learn about things as we reflect back on our experiences, when we think back to them. And this writing, that's the purpose of it. I want you to think back on items that have been contained that you've done within this particular course. So for this writing, I want you to organize it the way I have it set out, which means I want you to start with an introduction. And let me remove my highlighting here. I apologize. I had the highlighting there before, and now I want to remove it. Okay. So in the introduction, this is what I want you talking about. I want you to briefly describe the progression of your reading and writing and test prep from the beginning of class to now. In other words, I want you to talk about how things have changed. What did you used to do versus now? How did it change? What changed within it? And then I want you to end it with the thesis. So you're going to give me 3 or 4 sentences in the introduction, kind of briefly talking about your progress in areas, and it could be reading, writing, test prep. And then I want you to end with the thesis, and the thesis needs to name specific things that you're addressing up here. So I give you an example of this. Let me highlight it here. Here's an example. So initially, that means when I started, initially upon entering the class, I tell you I was not really successful in passing tests, struggled with anxiety. And then I tell you, but learning how to preview information and creating studying aids and analyzing my tests helped me become successful in my other courses, including Psychology 101. Okay, great. Now, of course, you do not need to use that exact wording, and you don't need to talk about those things. It could be other things that were beneficial to you or that you found valuable, those kinds of things. But essentially what you're telling me in the thesis is, okay, from start, I had this issue, and through the course, I learned these things to help me. And that is all one paragraph, by the way. So this is one paragraph, and remember, it's usually college level paragraph, which means average 7 sentences, 6 to 7 good sentences. And your last 2 or 3 are the thesis, where you are addressing specifics, okay? Now, in section 1, this is the next paragraph. You're going to talk about your pre-reading progress. So the pre-reading progress, you are explaining the process you use when you initially approach a text. Remember, this is before you actually do the reading. What are some pre-reading strategies you use? Talk about them here. If you think back to the plan, this would be the P and the L stage. What do you do when you preview? Flip through how many pages, look at the visual aids. Are there any visual aids? Turn headings into questions, locate important things, those type things. Look for summaries. Are there words in the margins? How do they identify vocabulary? Those kinds of things. So you're talking about the pre-reading process. This is before you actually start reading. And this should be approximately 1 paragraph. Then the next one, again, paragraph here, you are going to be talking about the writing process. So I want you to talk to me about areas you have improved on within the writing process. Identify areas also that you may still need to improve in. So talk about the writing process, talk about brainstorming, talk about drafting and revising and editing, and talk about which of those areas or all of them have you improved on in the writing process. What about this class has helped you in the writing process? And then if you still have areas you feel, I still need to work on this, talk about them. The next paragraph is about study aids. And in study aids, you need to list at least 3 study aids that you created or strategies you applied from this class and that you found beneficial. So you have to list, which means name 3 things, and then you have to explain how they helped you, how were they productive, how did you apply it in your learning or your studying to make you more successful. You can pick any 3 aids that we did or any strategies that you learned. This can be the plan, Cornell note taking, it can be mnemonics, it could be chunking, time schedules. Remember, we talked about how you study smaller amounts of time, but more often, mnemonics, use of mnemonics in your studying, any of those type things. So again, anything that you learned within this particular course is fine. You have to list at least 3 things, whether they be a study aid, an item, or a strategy that you applied, and talk about how it helped you. And then in the next paragraph, it's test analysis. I want you to talk about why is it important to analyze your test performance. And then, of course, describe any strategies that you tried or improved on for test performance. Be very specific in this. Talk about what was it that changed from test to test, or at least for one test that you did. And again, this is where you did the grid sheet, you identified items, and then you wrote that report. This is analyzing not only your test preparation, but also how you engage with the test behaviors. So it can be any of those things. What changed? Maybe you never used to make a study schedule, and now you do make a study schedule so that you study for little amounts over a period of times. Maybe you never studied before, and now you actually do review, but don't just say study. Tell me, how do you study? Maybe now you use note cards, or maybe now you use the plan to outline the chapter to help you, or maybe you handwrite your notes in your own words now instead of copying the text from the book. It could also be maybe you do deep breathing, maybe test strategies themselves. With multiple choice, you read over all of the questions before you choose an answer. Anything is free game as long as it relates to testing and test performances. So what did you try? I do want you to list 1 or 2 things that you found helpful, and then talk about and describe how they helped you. And then the conclusion, which is your last paragraph, in the conclusion, I want you to explain how moving forward in future, you're going to use particular strategies you learned in this class, anything to do with reading, writing, or test preparation to help you be successful in other courses. And then be specific in how you might apply it in another course. So pick a course that you're signed up for and think about, okay, what in this class did I learn that's going to help me that I can apply when I am in that class? So maybe you're taking Psych 101 next semester, and you're like, one of the things that's going to help me is the reading. I'm going to make sure I chunk my reading time. I don't just sit and read the whole chapter. And I'm also going to make sure I do my notes and put them in my own words so that I understand the material better. Be very specific here. And I want you to identify not only what you're going to do, but the class that you feel that it will work for in next semester. So that is the writing. As you can see, it's not a long writing. It's approximately 5 paragraphs. Remember, each of these is its own paragraph. So I want you, here are the requirements for this essay. I call it an essay. It's really a short writing. It's 1 to 2 pages. You may title it reflective essay. I will allow you to use that as the title. But in this particular writing, you are demonstrating that you have knowledge of MLA format. As I said before, it doesn't really matter what you're writing in here. There are no right or wrong answers because it's all relevant to you. What did you find valuable? What strategies did you try? However, I am looking to make sure you address the proper content in each section. So as long as you are addressing the correct content, you are fine. Each paragraph is approximately 6 to 7 sentences, no less. College level sentences. I want you to organize this particular writing in the format that I give you, which means the first paragraph is the introduction. The next paragraph, you're talking about your pre-reading process, so on and so forth. I don't want you to mix them up. I want you to give them in the order that I have given you here as well. You do not need to use any of the headers. You're just going, that's what you're going to be talking about in each paragraph. Be sure to use the topic sentence leading in. Don't forget, I want you to use Times New Roman style font, size 12, double spacing, 1-inch margins, everything with MLA document format design. Remember, that is a header with your last name and running page number in the upper right-hand corner, and then the first 4 lines, and then your title, and then you start your introductory paragraph. Use transitions when possible. Remember, transition words are things like however, although. For example, yeah, another way to do this is after your introduction, you can start. One of the first items I did when I did the first, that's a transition. Okay. Second item that I found important was writing process. That's another type of transition. You can also go that way. Do use spell check and grammar check tools before your submission. I should not see any mechanical errors, which means capitalize when you need to capitalize, put periods where they need to be, make sure that words are spelled correctly, spacing issues are all addressed. Make sure you get a double set of eyes on this. For example, a writing consultation to make sure that you've caught a lot of those things. Those things will count. This is your final submission, and if you have errors in it, it will affect your grade. But so in this particular one, it's not as heavy on content as long as you're addressing, but I am definitely looking at your writing level in the respect of, I guess, your editing, proofreading, and revising skills. The length is of 1.5 to 2 pages. If you're between 1 and 2 pages, you're fine. Do not go over 2. Do not go less than 1. That will affect your grade. And then, of course, as always, I give you a grading rubric. These are all the things I'm going to be looking at and the levels I'm going to look at for your essay in grading. As always, if you have questions or concerns, do reach out. I am happy to help you or guide you. And of course, do be sure to get your writing consultation before you submit for the final draft.